So how do you build confidence as a creative, whether your field is music, whether it's content, whether it's art, whether it's just public speaking? How do you build confidence? This is something that I was asked a couple times recently, so I thought I'd make a video about it in the hopes that it helps even just one person. If you are new here, I am Dr. Marcus Norris. I am a composer and music producer. I wrote the music for the film Honk for Jesus Save Your Soul. I wrote the music for the TV series Lady in the Lake with Natalie Portman and Moses Ingram. I am the founder and creator of Southside Symphony. I've worked with Andrew Day, Beyonce, a bunch of other cool projects that I've been blessed to do. Those are my credentials. I watch a lot of YouTube, so I know like when you watch a YouTube video, you're always like, who is this guy? What has he done? Why should I listen to him? Those are some of my credentials if that matters to you. So now the point of this video, how do you build confidence? Say you don't have all those accolades yet. My main philosophy, I'm gonna just rip the band-aid and give it to you. You're not gonna like my answer because people most of the time don't like this answer, but the only way to build confidence is to do the thing that you don't feel confident about yet. And most oftentimes at the beginning stages when you're just starting out, that's going to look like doing it imperfectly. And that's really hard for creatives. That's myself included, as something I've struggled with my entire life, being a perfectionist. This manifests in a lot of different ways. Recently, I read this book called Finish. I'll post a picture of it on here. It was really good, but it made me realize that almost everything I do is perfectionism, and sometimes it would manifest in ways that we don't readily identify as perfectionism. Like an example is the author talked about how, you know how sometimes you'll get an idea and be like, okay, I want to record some music. And then you'll be like, okay, well, if I record some music, I might as well do like a whole album because, you know, I have this idea for this whole expansive body of work. Okay, cool. Now, if I'm going to do this album, like it's 2025 or whatever year you're watching this, it's like videos are so important. So it needs to just like every song needs to have a video. Okay, cool. And then they need to all have a through line. So it really kind of needs to be like a feature film. At this point, you haven't even written or recorded a song yet. And now you have this whole thing about like doing a whole concept feature film for every song on this studio album. And then inevitably something comes up, some type of roadblock comes up, and you're like, okay, I don't have $1 million to make this feature film, or the director I want is busy. I might as well not even record any music. And then so you do nothing. That is a form of perfectionism that I didn't identify because it ends up being like, okay, just because I can't do this idealized version that I have in my head, now I'm just going to do nothing. When it's like, well, you could still like write music. You could still record music, produce music. There are a lot of versions that can happen that don't look perfect. I remember reading a similar line in the book, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And he talks about how like he had a friend who wanted to run marathons. And he was like, well, have you ever walked? Like, do you ever like go for walks? And they're like, why would I do that? And it blew his mind because it was like they were unhealthy and they were like expressing concerns about being unhealthy. And he's like, this person would rather think of themselves as the type of person who could do marathons rather than actually be the real person who actually does at least do walks in real life. And I think that happens a lot with creatives. I hate to say it. And so a lot of times the biggest issue for us is that like we don't want to get started doing the thing because it doesn't look like the version of it that's perfect yet. Like say you are a singer. It's like, well, I'm not doing these big stadium shows, so I don't want to do any shows. And you don't realize is that doing those small shows and getting those reps in is how you get the confidence. And that brings us back to our core subject here is that like, and my main philosophy is the only way to build confidence is to just do the thing a lot of times, and you have to do it while feeling unconfident at first. You know, I wish there was some magic medicine you could take or some magic tutorial or philosophy, but like there is no philosophy that's gonna like replace actually doing the thing. Alex Hormozy talks about the only way to build confidence is to give yourself evidence that you can do the thing. And so the way you gather that evidence is by doing it. For example, with me in my 20s, I was producing a lot of artists who lived near me on the south side of Chicago. At that time, I live in LA now. Like they would just come over to my place or we'd be in the studio and I would just make beats on the fly. Like I would just, you know, have my keyboard set up and I would just be making the music right there on the spot. And yeah, that's like, could be nerve wracking, or maybe I wasn't like super confident at first, but like now I've just done it 100 times or whatever. So it's like I'm very confident in like how quickly I can make music, how quickly I can translate like a feeling that I'm feeling or from the conversation that we're having into something musical very quickly. I only have that confidence because I've done it a bunch of times, and there's no shortcut through that. Another like pro tip that I can give you is that when I can, I try to think about the process of trying new things as like, how would a scientist approach this? How would a scientist think about this? And what that does is that sort of like helps me to remove my self-worth from the outcome, because it happens a lot with creatives because we care so much about the things that we're making. It's not like, okay, I make this video and the video doesn't do well. Okay, it's like I made this video and people didn't watch it or whatever. My ideas are bad. I'm bad. My art is bad. Like we don't separate ourselves from that. And so what I try to do is I try to think about this like a scientist experimenting. So that way, if I make a piece of music and people don't like it or don't react the way that I think they would react, then I just treat that as like getting more data. So it's like, interesting. That approach didn't work. What should I try next? Maybe if I change this part, or maybe it was the context or whatever. Like I kind of like come up with like hypotheses, and this kind of helps like create a little bit of like of a boundary between like my self-worth and the outcome of an experiment, because in that context, it's not personal. It's not really about me. It's about this idea or this execution or this process or this delivery mechanism or this audience, or like there's so many variables, and recognizing that is helpful for your mental health and for being able to do this over the long term, which, like I said, doing this over the long term is the only way to really reach a true and lasting success. And one last tip that I can think of that is kind of a specific one about like public speaking or anything like that is something that helped me when I was really just starting to do more public speaking. Like while I was in grad school, teaching courses or anything like that. Like one thing that helped me when I was first starting out and finding my voice is I would just think about like times I've saw somebody public speak. Okay, how did they act? How did they switch it on? How did they, like, if you've ever watched somebody having to speak in front of like a rowdy class and having to be the one that starts it, right? That's a specific skill. It's one thing to be introduced and everybody's listening and waiting for you, but when there's just a room full of loud people talking and you have to just like command attention, I would look at people who are doing that, and then I just kind of imagine like switching and turning on that version of myself that kind of was like that, if that makes sense. I don't know, I've never really said that out loud, but that's how I was thinking about it. And so I would say you can do that, like if you have to like fake it or be a version of yourself that acts like that while you start out until you really do find your footing, then I highly recommend that. And that helped me with like public speaking and things like that. Sometimes you kind of gotta like fake it till you make it with confidence. And that doesn't mean like be extra or go over or like overcompensate or anything like that, but just try to get the reps in, and eventually it'll pay off, and you'll be all right. You're in it for the long game, and your cousin Marcus is rooting for you. All right, guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe, like, all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next one.